really spell the end of all vestiges of the crown as far as it's considered anymore. Some of the people talk about treaty rights supposedly, you know, overrunning our ability to hold a referendum, or crown land, saying that that's federal land, not provincial, and that the crown owns it. We can't leave because it's King Charles. And it's just not true. It's a figure of speech from an older time that we maintain, but they really don't hold any real authority any longer. I mean, I know theoretically the Governor General can refuse to sign off on legislation, but the Governor General is also appointed by the Prime Minister. So it's a theoretical power. But I mean, it's somewhat of a valid question, but I don't think it's going to become an issue, to be honest.
Yeah, so we talked about earlier that the old age security, pensions, but they also talked about not having any income tax for Alberta residents. How are they going to generate money to pay for the CPP or the APP and the old age security? Are they going to be taxing like individual companies, or are we going after oil and gas? How's that revenue going to generate?
Yeah, the APP has a large finances and what they think, and some of it does sound a little too sugar-coated in my view, but they're campaigning. We should still try to look for honesty. It's a good question, because as I said, that instability that's first going to come, we're not going to be raining money the day after an independence vote. In fact, it's going to kind of tighten up for a little while. We could get rid of income taxes. I mean, theoretically, we've got to remember that, yeah, we have an outward flow of, you know, what, 20, 30 billion a year that we're not getting services back with. That's going to stop. That's money that's going to stay here. And that gives us a good chunk for either tax reduction, program spending, other items. But at the same time, that outflow of tax money is under the presumption that we still have a stable economy that's chugging along. And if we have that disruption, that might cut in half for a little while. So we shouldn't overpromise, but economically, the numbers are there. We will be better off independent. There's no getting around that. Alberta gets taken to the cleaners by hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars over the years for services we don't get back. And if we keep that here, we will be better. That's also leads on to something else, though. I think if we want to sell the case of independence and how we'd be fiscally better the day after independence, we have to clean up our own backyard first. And as far as I check, the province is running a deficit too. So stay on your elected members. We've got to tighten up. We've got to be conservatives as well, because people have a valid question saying, well, if I'm just going to get a smaller version of the same thing, I'm not going to be any better. So that's kind of up to us as well.
My question to you would be, I'm over here. My question to you is, with this movement going on and the strength that it's going to attain, how are we going to deal with the World Economic Forum, the WHO, and their Agenda 2030, which is being fast-tracked, and they have a lot of influence in Ottawa?
Well, the best way to deal with them is become independent. It's kind of a self-answering question. I mean, they're going to influence our federal government. They're even influencing our municipal governments. You know, it's horrible. As an independent province, we don't have to deal with those organizations. So why the hell would we? But that just tells me one more reason to get out. Because no, we can't avoid their influence until we get out.
A bit of a hypothetical. So let's say we did win the referendum and we got independence. Has there been any discussion that in terms of that we're not going to be in the same situation as we are now if we were an independent Alberta, and then all of the rural is going to be controlled by Edmonton and Calgary? So would there be something in place like down in the States with an electoral college or something like that, so that there's equal representation throughout the whole province as to opposed to just the two major centers, and they would be dictating what we would be having to deal with?
No, that's a great question. It's something Bruce Party mentioned when he was on my show. We really agreed on. If we became independent and then just brought in the same centralized sort of system we just left, boy, are we ever stupid. So now we've just got a smaller version. As you said, Edmonton could be dominating rural areas. So we have to plan a whole new system. We have to have a system that doesn't have other regions, you know, overstepping and crushing others. There's a number of systems to do that. A true bicameral system with a Senate based on, equal number of senators for area and then a rep by pop in another house is one way, because our Senate's, a joke and it doesn't really represent anybody. Something I've gone on about a lot, I talk about in my book, but one system I really love is the Swiss system. Does anybody know who the head of the Swiss government is federally? No, because their federal government is nothing. It's tiny. It doesn't mean much to them. Their federal government's mandate is so small, it just manages military, currency, postal, and international relations. Other than that, everything goes down to the cantons. So it's a country that small with 26 little units in it that are very autonomous and very different. They got 4 official languages. We can't even manage 2. And the reason for that is because unlike Canada, where we have 2 official languages, but we're trying to shove one down the throat of the other over there, what they do is say, you can have yours there and leave that one alone to have theirs there, and they give that autonomy. Some of those cantons are very socialist, some of them are very capitalist. And look, there's no separatist movement in Switzerland because you don't have that top-down government and you allow the regional disparity. So, but that's just one model. But yes, we have to come up with a new governance model. We don't want to recreate what we just managed to leave. And just pass along, the APP has something being released soon, I guess, to address some of those things as well. As I said earlier, I'm pretty pumped on the APP, but I'm not a member, so I don't have inside info on them until they whisper in my ear.
Hi, Corey. With a successful referendum, what are the plans for immigration from Canadians wanting to come and join the band?
See, I told you there'd be some good questions, wouldn't there? I think we would treat it like any kind of immigration, though. So, just to have a rational discussion on it, they would be, in some senses, depending on what their reasons for coming, perhaps some of our ideal immigrants. They're already used to a similar culture, though our cultures are different across the country. There's rarely a linguistic barrier. If they're coming for economic reasons to come to a free Alberta and be in a freer place than what they're leaving, I say bring them on in. I mean, the mass immigration that we're bringing in from other areas isn't doing us any favors right now. But like any immigration, we can't make the mistake with Canada of just letting the floodgates open. You've got to have a system. You've got to have vetting. You've got to have applications, whether they're coming from Canada, the United States, India, Brazil, wherever it might be. I mean, do we need more of the skills that this person is presenting when they're coming to apply? Do they share, and that's one of the tougher ones, some of the values that we have here? That's a tough one. But we got to come up with a system that can determine some of those things. And just a side note for someone who follow me on social media. All of the most horrific of slaughter.
We don't really have.
be actually true, I guess, if you're going to read in old documents and interpret them. The reality of today is we need a democratic movement to independence.
Hey, I've been to 62 events with Dennis Modry and Mitch Sylvester, and I've learned a couple of things. And one of the things about the 51st state is why would we jump out of the CRA to jump into the IRS? That just makes no sense at all. So that's out of the picture. And the other thing is they have talked to the U.S. folks about becoming the state, and they already have, like Puerto Rico would have to become the 51st state. So they wouldn't even go for it themselves. So that's out of the picture.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different discussion, and it's true. It's not really on the table. What I do look forward to, though, I think, is hopefully a better relationship with the Americans as an independent Alberta. I love the United States. I love Americans. I love their values. I'm tired of our central Canadian leadership using it as a foil for their electoral means to make divisions between us and the United States. I don't care about divisions between me and Montreal. They can have themselves, but I'm pissed off when they get between me and Houston. So we should improve the relationship. But yes, again, the America 51 thing, as was said, we'd have to actually get in line because Puerto Rico has kind of been waiting longer than us.
Anybody else?
Are we working on our own revenue agency in any way, shape, or form so that we've kind of got, some of that stuff in place before we vote to go? Because some people need some answers to these things. I think a lot of people are feeling like we need to discuss some of these things and kind of know that there's some things that are kind of coming into place, but I haven't heard anything about revenue agency type of thing, our own police force. I think Danielle was working on something like that, and she appointed some foreigner.
So what you're hearing right now is just a rerun from a previous live stream that happened in November. The show hasn't started yet. It will come over soon, and while people are being set up, it's more like kind of like a dinner type of thing. So that's why you don't hear the speakers right now, but it will start soon. So that's why you hear Cora Morgan at the back. So that's why.
I believe Jason Kenney's panel discussed that, as well as having us collecting our own taxes. I'm not sure if Alberta Next covered that or not, but it's been a discussion that's been around a lot. I don't believe it's high on the list of provincial priorities at this point. It's also not something that would be impossible to form in relatively short order the day after.
Also, thanks for tuning in. That was awesome.
As we're moving along, if there's one thing that the government's good at, is coming up with ways to collect our money. So they will form a local revenue agency quite quickly, hopefully a decent one.
Alberta Next actually did touch on that. Sorry, it's me talking.
Yeah, okay.
Alberta Next did touch on that.
Behind me.
I know. They actually went through what they were going to do to build their revenue agency.
Hi, Corey. Excuse me. I'm just wondering, once we get a referendum, then let's say we become our own country, what about Saskatchewan? Like, where are they at with theirs? Like, would we be willing to absorb them or let them join, or would they be better off to do their own thing, so to speak? Or is that too far down the road, I suppose, to really have any clear thought on that? But,
I mean, what I would like to envision is a very close relationship with Saskatchewan, and I hope they become independent the day after. Or maybe the day before. I'm okay either way with it. And we should be very tightly tied. I've done events in Saskatchewan. I was thrilled. I went to Regina. The room was packed. They're as enthusiastic over in Saskatchewan as they are in Alberta, just perhaps not quite as well organized as we are yet. So I think we should start discussing some of those relationships. I'd like to see more outreach between Alberta and Saskatchewan's independence movements. Again, that'll be more things that'll send some chills down the spines of our federalists out east when the western provinces are working more in lockstep. But Saskatchewan should be taken in consideration, but every province has to have their own vote. So it will be up to them.
Good day. Just curious about the people that are in Canada right now on working visas, the ones that are in Alberta. After the referendum goes through, what happens to all these other people?
Yeah, well, I mean, if they're temporary visas, they will eventually expire, whether it's theoretically. And I guess we'd have to negotiate that as that goes. Again, it wouldn't be an overnight thing. I think something foolish, we'd already be in a disruptive time. If we start rounding up everybody who's on a temporary visa and deporting them, we're not going to do ourselves any favors. We need to fix the system up, but we need to do it with thought. And because there are reasons people here are legitimately to work and or perhaps immigrate long term and so on. So we have to go into it carefully, but that would have to be managed as well. A lot of the questions kind of come to the same thing. It's that period for up to 2-3 years afterwards. There's going to be 1,000 threads to pull and line up and get in order, but I'm confident we could do it.
Hi, Corey. With the Richmond ruling with the Cowichan tribe, how would you deal with First Nations of Alberta?
Well, the First Nations, we've got to start getting some realistic discussions with our First Nations. I've written columns on that. As was mentioned, the treaties have been read by some folks. I think a lot of First Nations people haven't. And the treaties are actually pretty straightforward documents. They aren't very long. Most of what they talk about are where the boundaries of the reserve are. And then they do very permanently cede everything else. It's very clear. But the people living on those reserves are Albertans. They're citizens. They deserve all the benefits and rights and everything out of an independent Alberta that we do. It's a really hard area to reach out to. I think there's a lot of bureaucrats, band leadership, people in the Indian industries, and lawyers who make good money out of it, who really stand between the people on the ground and the reserves and everybody else. But as far as a veto power, I was talking about that on Chris's podcast last night. And it's been ruled on, if you want to look at Canadian courts, by the Supreme Court over and over and over again. First Nations do not have veto power over projects or things on Crown land. This has been discussed. It's been covered. People keep saying you need their permission to leave. We don't. Find the spot where it says we do. The worst situation, though, would be partition. If we became independent, but somehow those were some strange little communities that were part of Canada within Alberta. That's why I think we got to talk about decentralizing power. That's our start with the Swiss system, perhaps. The blood reserve would make a nice canton of their own. There you go. There's your independent area. There's your sort of province within a province. And perhaps you can build your own economy within a larger unit. I don't know. But people are going to keep throwing that at us and pretending there's a veto, and there is not. It doesn't mean we got to throw it in their face and say we don't need your input. We do. As Albertans, we certainly do. But they can't stop us. They're just Albertans like the rest of us. We got to quit pretending that they are a different level of citizen. Just one.
But that's going to be at the end, right? Yeah, I could come down. Nobody ever asked me a question.
Hi.
Anyway, so.
Thanks for coming as well.
I'll just come down.
About 10 years ago at the Capri in Red Deer, I was at an Alberta separatism seminar. It was 2 days long, and the final conclusion was there's 9 steps to separate as far as sovereignty goes, and the 9th step is getting the rest of Canada to vote that we can go.
No.
And here's a couple things. We had representatives of the PQ and the Bloc were there to talk to us, so I've already listened to all this, and they said it's a 30-year process. That's why they're 30, 40 years into their separation. So to me, we've had these comments about the 51st state. If you get Trump moving tanks and stuff across the border, I think it's the easy way to get our sovereignty. It'd be much easier if we were Americans to get our own sovereignty than staying in Canada and working through this.
Okay, but we don't need the rest of Canada's permission. Whatever that step 9 may have been considered, and I don't think the Triumph tanks are rolling in any time soon. But point taken. But just a side note with the Canadian military, a Western Standard piece, we have currently with our military 2 generals for every functional tank in our entire military. So we could send them to the front lines. not going to last very long. That's a sad thing. We've got 2 admirals for every ship right now, too, or something.
Anybody else? You?
We have a lot of financial ties with the rest of Canada where we're completely interlinked. So people have a loan, for example, from the Royal Bank, who maybe doesn't want to cooperate with this whole idea. How does that get resolved?
Yeah, it would have to. We would have to sort it out over a while. Somebody asked a great question, and another one: what about RRSPs? Because that's a tax deferral on federal taxes, and I still owe that money theoretically to the federal government if I'm independent later. How do I work that out? It's going to take a lot of wrangling, a lot of discussion. One thing I tell people, though, get involved with the Bow Valley Credit Union. Stay local. Move in as fast as you can. They're gold-based, but I mean, still, it's not that easy when your mortgage, your car payment, your RRSPs, your credit cards are all with one of the federal banks. There's no avoiding it. Something I'd like to remind a lot of people of is this isn't the first time it's happened. You know, who can remember? Czechoslovakia, the Velvet Revolution. They split. No bullets fired. They had to deal with separating banks, accounts, collections, pensions. All of that had to be done. Norway and Sweden, they were a union. They separated with a referendum. People forget that. All of that had to be ironed out then, too. I think it was probably a lot less complicated in 1905 than now, with everything being intertwined. But they're good questions, and it all will have to be resolved. I suspect if we're getting close to an independence vote, a lot of people really are going to be bringing their investments in anyways, just for the sake of self-preservation. But we still have to come up with mechanisms, absolutely. And we'll find ways.
Okay, I just want to mention there is a slow roll convoy that is going out on Saturday. I was asked to mention this. If you want to go north, it's leaving from Bluegrass Sod Farms at 10 a.m. If you want to go south, it's leaving out of the hideout at 9 a.m. So, yeah, there is that happening on Saturday. That is, yes, yeah. Yeah.
We're just wondering about the national parks. What would happen with them?
Again, like military bases, it would have to come down to negotiation. It's not reasonable to think it would remain a Canadian national park within Alberta. It's going to become our property, so let's talk about that. Again, cut it out of the debt. We'll work it out, or it's an exchange. Hey, I mean, we own part of the national parks in Ontario and Quebec then, theoretically too, don't we? But it's again, a valid question. National parks, as the other person mentioned, federal penitentiaries, there's federal properties. We just have to negotiate. But there's no way they would remain within federal control in an independent Alberta. It just wouldn't be feasible for anybody.
I just want to say a couple more things because I see people are exiting. It does get to be where they had enough of sitting or standing. But I want to do another little plug for APP. Please go online to the albertaprosperity.project.com. The website is amazing. Everything you've asked, it's there. There's articles, there's videos. Everything that you want to know is on that website. It just takes some time to go there and have a look at it. We have 2 copies left here tonight of the Value of Freedom. This is the financial document that lays out the financial case for leaving. This is also available on the website. You can print it or read it right there. You don't have to buy this. Sometimes it's just nice to have it. If you don't have a printer, you want to see it. There's some small 2-page kind of like the cheat sheet review. I got to admit, this is the one I actually got through. I only got partway through this one. But I didn't need to read that one because I go to all the meetings and I hear what they say and I know that this document is no lie. It's there. As for the Constitution, big question, but I can tell you There'll be something coming out similar to this because everybody is asking what next, and there has to be some suggestions. So when the paper comes out, it will be a discussion paper, a suggestion, just as this Value of Freedom was a discussion paper. So hang in there. It's all coming. The work has been laid down. Every step is being covered. We know that you all need answers, and they will be there. But just know this. Everything will be decided by you, the Albertans, by a vote. So thank you so much for coming. I'm not rushing you away, but I did want to say those things, and I realized that some people were actually leaving. So thank you so much.
Oh, we've got books over here. So Corey Morgan, his book, The Sovereigntist Handbook, is for sale at his table. So if anybody wants to pick that up. And then also the silent auction for the beautiful Alberta Strong sign that was donated to us.
All right, and I think everybody's kind of wrapping up. It's getting pretty toasty in here. I'll hang around if people got questions. I'm happy to chat one-on-one. We'll let folks cool down. Thank you all much for the chance to talk to you, and I learned a lot as well. I love these meetings, so thanks again.
So, is this still on? Just so you know, there was 253 people.
everybody. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Rimbey. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. Well, this is absolutely fantastic to see this many people here interested in having a discussion about their province, about their home. So before we get going, I want you all just to give yourselves a round of applause because this is absolutely fantastic. And yes, I know some of you only came out for pierogies, but that's okay. That's okay. So the reason I wanted to do this is because for the last few years, since November 2021 actually, we've been having discussions with Albertans about the future of the province. But generally what it is it's one or two or four of us up here and we're just talking at you, right? We're just telling you things. And so I got thinking, you know, how are we going to ensure that we have the best possible outcome for where we live, for us and our families? And it occurred to me that that happens by having discussions with our friends, with our neighbors, and specifically with those people who are not aligned with us in our vision for Alberta. So I had this idea that we would break bread, or pierogies in this case, and have a more, dare I say, sorry, there was a mouse in there. Dare I say, more intimate evening, where rather than a bunch of us standing up here talking at you, we're going to talk with you. So I've invited a few people, Dr. Michael Wagner, Adam Derges with the Army of Great Men. My friend Shane Meikle is here. And we're going to do some short speeches, I guess you'd call it, to explain why we're here, why we want to do these things. And then we're going to open the evening up to you folks. Well, I want to hear your questions. We want to hear your concerns. We want to hear your points of opposition to an independent Alberta. And we're going to do our absolute best to have proper discussions with you. Once the Q&A is slowing down, the idea is that we're going to come visit with you. We're going to join you at your tables, and we're going to have these discussions where you're at. And I would encourage you, as you're enjoying the delicious pierogies and sausage that Jolene is frantically cooking back there, talk amongst yourselves as well. Share with your friends and your neighbors and people you don't know your opinions. Don't be ashamed or meek about your opinions on what your future looks like. This is so important. We've been taught for decades that it's impolite to talk about religion and politics. Do you remember that? Politics, whether you like it or not, affects your life from before you're born to after you're dead. And religion affects your eternity. So I can't think of two things that are more important that we talk about openly in a civilized society. That's the idea here. So when I planned this, I was thinking, oh, we'll get 100 people, 150 people. Obviously, there's way more than that, so that's fantastic. We did go and buy more food, so we're going to be cooking all night. If you don't get to eat right away, you will get to eat. Don't worry. And what else was there? Oh, yes. If you feel so inclined, please throw something in the bucket to help cover the event. One of the other reasons why I wanted to do this specific event is because within the next year, we're very likely going to be asked a question. And that question, the way we answer it, is going to affect our lives, our kids' lives, and our grandkids' lives in ways that we can't even imagine. So the importance of having these discussions and learning the facts before we make our choice, it is paramount. So we want to do, I don't even want to tell you the number because it's very intimidating for me to tell you the number of events. We want to try and cover every corner of this province. We want to have discussions with Albertans from everywhere. And that's going to take a lot of hard work and it's going to take some money. So if you feel so inclined, you want to support that endeavor, throw something in the bucket. It's going to come around later, I'm sure. If you don't, then you don't have to. It's absolutely, this is a free event for you. And, you know, people said to me that I was crazy. I should do tickets. How are you going to make sure you don't lose any money? And for me, Albertans have always shown up every time. And tonight is a great example of that. You guys showed up, and you've made this a success already. So thank you very much for that. The way we're going to do dinner, I had some input. Maybe we should do a trivia thing, see who answers the trivia questions, and some other stuff. But rather than doing that, here's what I want to do. The ladies are going to eat first. And I should have actually let the men eat first, because the ladies guaranteed will be stealing stuff off their plate. I know from experience. But we're going to let the ladies eat first. So, and we're going to go oldest to youngest. How's that sound? Yeah. But before we do that, before we eat, we're going to give thanks, and we're going to ask for a blessing on tonight, because, well, that's the right thing to do. Everything we have, the opportunities that we have, are only by the grace of God. That is the 100% truth. And it is important, I believe, to maintain the foundation of society that's allowed basically the West to become what it is, right? So yes, Jane?
Just mention that the bucket over there is for the meal, and the bucket over there is for the tour.
Okay, so there's a bucket in the corner for the meal, and there's a bucket somewhere else for the tour. Anyway, I would like to invite Julie up to say grace for our meal, and then we're going to get to some pierogies and sausage. And after that, what we're going to do is we're going to get as many people with plates in front of them as we can, and then we're going to come up and start some short speeches and get into the Q&A. But top priority for me is always food, and if you don't believe that, check out my cafe, shameless plug, the Whistle Stop Cafe in Mirror, Alberta, if you want to see how I really feel about food. So Julie, if you don't mind, come on up and give the blessing.
Hello. Glad everybody is here. Some faces I know, some I don't. And thank you, Chris, for having me do the blessing for the meal. I love what Chris said about not being ashamed of your faith, your feelings, your opinions, and being bold. I think the time is come to be bold. So just like Romans says that I'm not ashamed to share the gospel of the Lord, I am so blessed to be here in front of you to say the blessing over the food. So if you want to join me, please feel free. Father God in heaven, Lord, thank you. Thank you for this life. Thank you for this community. Thank you for our bodies. Please help us to steward them well. Please bless the food that is about to go in our bodies. Bless all of the people who have made the food, Christopher, and all of the people who are here tonight to speak to us. What I pray, Father God, is that your spirit of peace, your spirit of togetherness, of gentleness, of meekness, of truth, and above all, your spirit, Lord, your spirit of love be upon us, whether we have differing opinions or not, that we do not strive against each other, but strive together for the common good of all, with you being the cornerstone. Jesus, with you being the truth, the way, and the life of all that we do. In Jesus' holy name, I pray this. Amen.
Okay, so ladies first, and I hate to do this to you, but oldest to youngest, and you can kind of decide that amongst your tables if you don't mind. I'm not going to even try and point it out.
I decided to come here and I sat down with you guys and you said, and I started telling the story. That happened. He knew all about me. He's his friend. So who's cooking this?
So I have to just adjust the microphones because there was a slight change in schedule. So I took the the microphone stands because it was kind of ugly. People just, instead of handling the microphone, they were using the actual mic stand. I'm like, no. Okay, anyways. Just me ranting here, being silly, I guess.
respond to any of you in this meeting. But however, let's not give them an opportunity to take a picture. So with that, first of all, I'm going to thank each and every one of you from the bottom of my heart for coming here, and I'm going to introduce our MC, Mr. John Bolton.
Thank you, Mitch. Can the people way at the back in the cheap seats hear us? Wave your flags back there. They're hearing us. That's outstanding. Cheers to all of you. It's wonderful to have you here today. I'll get into more introductions in just a moment, but before we do that, I'd like to welcome up Minister Jeff Gooderham to start us off with a prayer. Thank you.
Would you join me in bowing our head before the Lord? O God, our God, how majestic is your name in all the earth. Blessed is everyone who fears the Lord and walks in his way. As we gather here this afternoon, we recognize that we are at a most critical moment in the history of this great province. Do we choose to pursue righteousness, justice, truth, and morality? Or do we choose to continue going down the path that leads ultimately to destruction? Today we recognize that unless the Lord builds this house, they labor in vain who build it. Unless the Lord guards this land, the watchmen stay awake in vain. And so we ask, O Lord, that you would intercede on our behalf, that you would build this house, and that you would guard this land, and that we would give to you all the glory. And so we ask, Lord, that you would begin a mighty move across this province, a move of repentance that leads to salvation, first from the evil of sin and death, then from the bondage of oppression and tyranny. For we recognize today how far as a country we have drifted from the truth of your word. And we have gathered together because we want to restore truth and we want to stand against evil. So forgive us, Lord, our trespasses, and forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Establish once more in this great province the holiness and the righteousness and the name of Jesus Christ. We thank you for this beautiful, prosperous land. To call this home is a blessing that you have graciously bestowed upon us. To raise our families, to worship freely, to work, to play is all a gift from you. And so, Lord, we pray your protection over this land, over our children, our families, our homes. We turn our eyes and our hearts to you, knowing and believing that you alone sustain all that we have. And so, Lord, for the sake of your name, for the sake of our children and grandchildren, and for the sake of this great province, we pray, O Lord, that you would continue to guide and direct us. Guard those who are leading this party, all who are serving within it. Give to them wisdom from on high. Make this movement and this province a model for all to see, that we shall serve the Lord our God, and we shall live in the blessings and the goodness of our God. For to you be the kingdom, and to you be the power, and to you alone be the glory, both now and forevermore. And all God's people said, amen.
Thank you, Jeff. My name is John Bolton. I have a YouTube channel, John Bolton AB. People call me John, but most people say, you're the guy with the big blue mug. I always have my big blue mug when I'm up at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's wonderful. Alberta, let me take a look at you. You're looking good. Looking really good. This is amazing. I talk about politics on my channel, talk about the Liberals a little bit. I talk about the Liberals a lot, okay? But I talk about independence a lot as well. I'm here because the same reason as you. I've spoken to a lot of the people on the stage here today. I'm honored to be standing here today. A guy from Ontario 15 years ago standing here, part of the Alberta independence movement, is just remarkable for me. It really is. I think there might be some people talking a little bit about politics today. Here's some laughs from the right of me here. Earlier this week, Mark Carney stood up and said, "Do we all have to sacrifice, folks?" Do you think you've sacrificed enough? I really think that Alberta has sacrificed enough, folks. And it's time for us to move on. I want to take a moment right now to thank all the people for being here today. You, of course, and the people on the stage here. I was talking to Mitch Sylvester, the CEO of the Alberta Prosperity Project, earlier this week. He said he's put something like 65,000 kilometers on his car.
So I got some information on the live stream for those who are essentially watching, saying, "Well, where are the speakers? Where are the speakers?" So there were a change in the schedule. So what will happen is that they're going to line up the four speakers, one after the other, and then it's going to be a Q&A. But it's not there yet. It will probably be in 15 to 20 minutes after the people start eating. So that's kind of what's happening right now. This is like a very last minute change, which is outside of the description of the assignment, but just stay tuned that things are moving there. So thank you very much for tuning in.
Folks, hello. Folks, if I could have your attention for just a moment. When you're done with your meal, there's a cart just to the, towards the end of where the water jugs are. If you could just return your dishes to that cart, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
My brain has to think like twice as much, because what happens is that I'm sending the signal to the auxiliary port. Logic is not saying but I don't think about that guy who's staring at the stereo line. That's what I think about. Gotcha.
So I just spoke with the okay. So I just spoke with the organizers just 2 minutes ago. So they're just waiting until the food lineups dies out, and then the live stream is gonna start with actual speeches and actual speakers. So there is a lot of changes that happen, last minute changes and last minute changes. These are completely out of my control. I'm sincerely sorry for that. But things are moving on their end. They're just waiting for the food line here that's on the back to die off. And then the speech will start. And that's where you're going to see the folks like Michael Wagner and all those guys talking on the microphone. So just stay on the line, and we'll talk soon then. So I just went there and installed the tripod and adjust the settings a little bit on the cameras. I think the live stream should start soon with all the speakers.
going to be starting at 8 o'clock.
Okay.
So 8 o'clock, how long is it? We're going to do 5 minutes each. Some of us are 10 minutes. So that's 4.
So confirmation that they're gonna start the speech at 8 p.m. Because I see people that were very pissed off about being. I thank you for your patience, because it's normally when I do a live stream, it's pretty straightforward. Like, okay, talk about it, and now it's like completely different. But anyways, I keep it on the loop. And also, if you are on the live streaming, don't forget to chip in. Helps the show going, I guess. And because those things are not necessarily free, driving across Alberta just to bring the news, I guess. And you can't see from here because this is the camera side, but I have my 2 speakers, my mixers in plural, because I have 2. And so happens that I'm basically using the building's PA system, so I have a DI box running a XLR cable there. So my mixer is not full, but it's half full, which is kind of cool. I'm gonna get some pierogies before the show starts. Hope nobody touches my mixer though, but I think it should be fine. Yeah, don't bring food the next time, Bunny. That was a bad idea. It's good for it's good for networking. For the live stream is absolutely wrecked because of this. Anyhow.
Good evening. How is everybody? And I hope everybody has gotten fed up well. My name is Shane Meikle, and I know a lot of faces in the crowd. Some of them have known me since I was about that tall. So we're going to get started here. First thing we're going to do, and this is the part that a lot of people either like or hate. We have got donation buckets that we're going to pass around table to table. We are going to be going all over this province for the next 5 to 6 months, and we need to be able to afford the gas to do it. We don't need to make any money on it, but we have to pay for halls. We have to pay for all kinds of things. So if anybody knows a good hall that they'll rent somewhere for us, get in touch with me, and we'll arrange to have a meeting there. Otherwise, we're going to be, we're heading to the East Country next week, and then we're heading to the north, and then to the south. So we're going to be all over the next couple of months. So I will get the gentlemen in the red vests that are going to come around to every table with the buckets, and they can get started now if they want to. In the meantime, everybody knows that the bathrooms are just outside the door there, as well as we have emergency exits there and there. Hopefully we don't need to use them, but in case you need them, that's where they are. Our first speaker of the night is Dr. Michael Wagner. He's a columnist with the Western Standard, and he's been doing this for a long time, talking to people about independence. And he has some great books on the subject at the back. So without further ado, I will introduce Dr. Michael Wagner.
Yeah, you can hold it. Thank you, Shane. Actually, just a little funny story. This is the second time I've been to Rimbey, and the first time was for my honeymoon. When my wife and I got married, it was June 1989. We were living near Edmonton, and we were dirt poor. So we borrowed one of our family's vans to live in for 2 weeks, and we came to Rimbey because that's as far as we could go with the money that we had. So this is a special place for us for that reason. So tonight, what I want to talk about is to say that Alberta independence is the way to preserve what was best about Canada. You know, Canada was once a great country. Sorry. You can go for seconds of food if you want. That's more important. So feel free to get up and go. Okay, I'll just start this once again. So Canada was once a great country. For its first 100 years or so, Canada was known for exceptional national projects. We built a railway across the northern part of the continent. We built a country out of a rough and cold wilderness. We turned the wilderness into a prosperous and vibrant community, and our military was known for its effectiveness in many wars. So Canada was a great country. But since the 1960s, it has changed a lot. Liberal leaders decided to remake Canada into a different kind of country, one that prioritized leftist social engineering over the country's historic identity and achievements. This transformation was criticized by many Canadian patriots. One of the best critics, I believe, was Ted Byfield, the founder of Alberta Report magazine. Many of you might remember Alberta Report magazine and Ted Byfield. Now, Ted Byfield, was born and raised in Toronto, but he came out west. And once he moved in Alberta and lived in Alberta, he became a fiery Alberta patriot, one who really believed in Alberta. Now, he talked about how when he grew up in Toronto, probably in the 1930s or so, Canadians still thought of themselves as British North Americans. Like our flag was the Union Jack, or at least the red ensign with the Union Jack in the upper corner. And the Union Jack actually consists of 3 crosses. The Cross of St. George from England, the Cross of St. Andrew from Scotland, and the Cross of St. Patrick from Ireland. So the Union Jack is an explicitly Christian symbol that symbolizes our historic Christian heritage in Britain and Canada. But then in 1965, of course, Prime Minister Lester Pearson changed our flag. He got rid of that original flag and replaced it with the flag that we have now. So the Christian symbolism of the Union Jack was dispensed with, and we ended up with a flag with a pantheistic symbol. the sugar maple, like the leaf of the sugar maple, which is a tree that does not grow in Western Canada. And so this change in the flag was symptomatic of a larger movement away from Canada's original identity. And you know, when you weaken the nation's national identity, then people start to identify with their region or their province. They don't feel as attached to their nation, and so they begin to feel more attachment with their province or their region. And this was happening within Canada. Now, this is important because sometimes Albertans who support independence are accused of being disloyal to Canada, but this is not true. Albertans who support independence are often those who remember and deeply love the Canada that existed before the Liberals wrecked it. Indeed, you know, by 1980, by 1980, we were already beginning to see the emergence of two Canadas, Old Canada and New Canada. You know, and it was Pierre Trudeau bringing in the New Canada. So Byfield, when he talks about the two Canadas, he talks about Old Canada. Old Canada was essentially founded by Sir John A. Macdonald, who gave us a constitution in 1867, and New Canada was founded by Pierre Trudeau, who gave us a new constitution in 1982. So you've got two leaders, two constitutions, and essentially two different countries, Old Canada and New Canada. And Ted Byfield described the differences between, or the practical outworkings of these two Canadas. This is what Ted Byfield wrote. Old Canada had some harsh laws, but was safe to live in. New Canada has enlightened, lenient laws, and is increasingly unsafe to live in. Old Canada was generally committed to the free enterprise system, modified where necessary. New Canada is increasingly committed to the socialist system, magnified where unnecessary. Old Canada met its military obligations, in fact served magnificently in 2 world wars. New Canada has virtually no army and has reneged on its military obligations. Old Canada was frugal and poor but paid its way. New Canada runs at a $14 billion deficit. Of course, that was $14 billion in 1980, so it would be much larger by today's standards. But these are two very different countries. And so when people talk about being loyal to Canada, we have to ask, which Canada are you being loyal to? You have to choose between Old and New Canada. And this is a quote from Ted Byfield again about this very point. He said, when people put the question, are you loyal to Canada, I have to ask, to which Canada? The one we used to know, or the one which Mr. Trudeau is forcing upon us? I certainly felt part of the first, but that country doesn't seem to be there anymore. About the second, I have grave doubts. So it's not a question of being disloyal to Canada. It's a matter of choosing which Canada you're going to be loyal to. Pierre Trudeau transformed in Canada into a different kind of country, one that is no longer recognizable to many of us. So how did Trudeau fundamentally transform Canada? He didn't like Canada the way it was, and so he wanted to change it into a different country altogether. So if you want to change a country comprehensively, the best way to do that is to change the Constitution. The Constitution is the foundational document of a country that establishes the various governments and their relationships and the rights of the citizens. So when you change the Constitution, you change the country. And Pierre Trudeau changed the Constitution. He understood that was the way to change a country. So when he became Justice Minister in 1968, he first put forward his proposal for a Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and the federal government published his proposal as a book. So Trudeau talked about how we needed to entrench rights in the Constitution. So there are countries with what are explicitly enumerated rights in the Constitution, like the United States has the Bill of Rights, where they had explicitly enumerated rights, whereas Canada followed the British system, where our rights were protected, but they weren't explicitly enumerated in the Constitution, so people couldn't see them word for word. And so Trudeau convinced people that that meant we actually didn't have rights protection. So it was an easy sell for him to convince people to adopt the Charter. Don't you want your rights protected in the Constitution? Like, who would say no? So he was implying that Canadians did not have rights protection. They did, they just didn't have it in the explicitly enumerated way that the Americans had or some other countries. Anyway, Pierre Trudeau's sales pitch worked, and he got his new constitution in 1982. But the Charter of Rights and Freedoms had an equality rights section that did not immediately come into effect. So the Charter was adopted in 1982 officially, but there was 3 years before it would come in fully into effect, because they wanted to make sure that the federal and provincial governments had 3 years to change their various laws to bring them into conformity to the Charter, so that it wouldn't be a whole rash of lawsuits based on those laws not being conformed to the Charter. So the Charter came fully into effect in 1985, and our Minister of Justice in 1985 was John Crosbie of Brian Mulroney's government. So just when the Charter is about to come into effect, this is what John Crosbie said to Canadians, I quote, "The public does not realize that we already have had a revolution in Canadian society. The adoption of a charter was a revolution. It has changed the whole power structure of Canadian society. It has taken tremendous power from governments and given it to the courts of Canada, the Supreme Court of Canada, which is not widely realized. Therefore, we are in a whole new legal environment in Canada. There has been a revolutionary change. A revolutionary change. Who told us that if we adopted a charter, we'd have a revolution in our system? Nobody told us that till after. But a revolution it was, and over the next few years, so many laws in Canada were struck down by the Supreme Court on the basis of the Charter, because the Charter led to a fundamental restructuring of our country, a revolutionary change. Now, Dr. William Gardner, in 1994, he wrote that the Charter was, quote, an entire state enterprise for the reshaping of Canada. He went on to say, quote, Pierre Trudeau viewed the Constitution as a means to the achievement of some ideal state, an instrument for forcing society into a predetermined social and political mold. And that is exactly what Pierre Trudeau achieved. With his so-called Charter of Rights, he essentially refounded Canada as a different country, one that fit his ideological program. Each and every day, courts across Canada enforce Trudeau's vision of Canada using his Charter of Rights. So in this sense, Pierre Trudeau rules Canada from the grave. He is dead but not gone. His ideology continues to shape our country and will continue to do so thanks to the Charter. And I've got a perfect example of that from the National Post. This is from 3 weeks ago online, the National Post Online, January 29th, 2026. So it's by Ted Morton, a column by Ted Morton. Ted Morton was a political scientist at the University of Calgary for several decades. Then he was also a cabinet minister in Alberta's government. And this column is entitled, The Charter is Gutting the Provinces and the Data Proves It. And it's based on a study from the Macdonald-Laurier Institute. So what happens is, when provinces bring in laws, many times they're challenged under the Charter, and they go to the Supreme Court. And often the Supreme Court strikes down the provincial laws. So what's been happening, like Trudeau's been dead for 25 years, and yet every year in Canada, the Supreme Court is reducing provincial powers on the basis of the Charter. So he's dead, but his ideological vision is being implemented by the Supreme Court every year because he got the Charter implanted into the Constitution. So we have Old Canada and New Canada. Many people still remember the Old Canada and what it meant. We want our country back. That is why we support Alberta independence. Good Old Canada has vanished. In place, we have New Trudeau Canada, which reeks of wokeism, socialism, and emerging police state. But an independent Alberta can and will uphold the noble traditions and freedoms of the original Canadian dream. Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce Adam Derges, whose podcast is called The Army of Great Men.
Thanks, Michael. We should have rehearsed. That's what I was going to say. Now what am I going to talk about? Geez. Thanks, everybody. This is so overwhelming to see this many people that care, right? And that's better? Okay. That's what's so awesome to see, right? And when people are underestimating this movement, that's the part that they are missing. They are missing how much we care, right? They're calling us names, calling us traitors, calling us this and that. And it's like, no, you guys, they're doing this because we care. We're doing this because we care. This is about love for this province and love for what Canada used to be. And our children. I want to talk about values for a minute. I'm going to extend a little bit on what Michael talked about. I actually don't think about values in terms of right or wrong. I don't. Right? Maybe, sir, you value apple juice and I value orange juice. That doesn't mean one's right and one's wrong. And beer. You value beer. Okay, yeah, well, we value the same thing then, yeah. But I do believe in sticking to your values. And I think what's happened is Canada's changed quite a bit. Canada's a different country than it was 12 years ago. And we stayed the same. And they're mad at us for not progressing with them. But we don't look at it as progress, do we? Like, that's not what we see. We like it the way it is. And that doesn't mean that, we don't want to grow. Everybody wants to grow. But, grow in the direction that we value, And so when I look at Canada, the first thing I started looking at when I was looking at separation, you look at it like, you're in a job you don't like or a marriage that isn't working or whatever, you don't just instantly go to, well, let's just throw it all away. The first thing you look at is, well, can I save it, right? Is this something that can be saved? And when I realized that it can't, that it's not going to get better, that was the day that I said, okay, well, then we got to save us. When you look at the disconnect in the way that Canada votes, this will blow your mind. So we have this illusion in Canada that we're closer than we think, right? That, oh, Pierre Poilievre could win, or we could do this. The only reason that we have this illusion is that there are 4 left-wing parties in Canada and 1 right-wing party. If there were 2, the divide would be so big, it would be insurmountable. So the only reason it's even close is because they split their vote 4 ways, right? You've got the Bloc, the NDP, the Liberals, and the Green. And I know the Green are only a couple percent, but still, whatever. When you add up those votes, left versus right, you see the divide in our values in this country. You see the divide. So I'm telling you, this will blow your mind. So Alberta and Saskatchewan combined in the last election, voted 74% right-wing, conservative. If you take Alberta and Saskatchewan out of the voting pool, the rest of Canada votes 62.5% left. Just to put that into perspective, California voted 57.5% left in the last federal election. The rest of Canada is 5% further left than California. In fact, there was only one state, I think it was, I should have looked, it was either New Hampshire or Delaware that voted further left than the rest of Canada did, and it was by like a fraction. So this illusion that we have that we're one election away from saving this thing is just that. It's an illusion. Does anybody think California is going to vote Republican in the next election? Well, they have a better chance than the rest of Canada. They're closer than the rest of Canada. It's mind-boggling. So now what do we do about it, right? How are we going to win this thing? Before I answer that question, how many people in this room have not made up your mind yet? Even like if you're 98% but not 100. Is there anybody here who hasn't made their mind up yet? On whether or not you want to leave, you're going to vote to leave Canada. 1? 2? Okay. Here's how we're going to win this thing. We need more. We are not going to win this thing by preaching to the choir. And in order to do that, we need to get uncomfortable. We have to, as a group, get uncomfortable. What do I mean by that? The people who oppose us are really good at making us uncomfortable. Do you remember in COVID, and I don't care if you got vaccinated or not, I personally didn't, but here was my personal experience during COVID, okay? I was under the impression that it was just me and a couple of crazy hillbillies that didn't do it. Because that's what they told us, right? That's what they told us. There's just a few of you, and you're nuts. And so they kept people quiet. And it was funny, last summer, I was playing golf with a buddy of mine, a guy I know pretty well. And he said, yeah, I didn't get vaccinated. The heck do you mean you didn't get vaccinated? Why didn't I know this? There were hundreds of thousands of people in that camp that did it, but did it quietly. Could you imagine how differently that whole experience would have been if the people who didn't do it were as loud as the people who did? There's always a section of the population that's going to follow the herd. But if we don't have a herd, they don't know who to follow. So we all need to step up as leaders. We all need to step up as leaders. But I got to warn you guys, I promise you, it is going to be more uncomfortable than you think. They are going to call you names. They're going to call you a traitor. They're going to call you every name in the book, and they're going to make you feel like you're a bad person for wanting to do this. And they're going to try to convince you that you're alone, that you're in the fringe minority. That's the game plan. And the one thing, you guys, the one thing the left does, I mean, there's a few things they do better than we do, but the one thing they do is they unite. And they convince us that we're divided. They are incredible at it. Think about even the exercise of putting your pronouns in your bio. Right? But look what that does. It tells everybody what team you're on, right? It tells everybody what team you're on, and they do it without fear because there's no repercussions. Nobody comes at them for doing that. What's our badge of honor? How do we tell people what team we're on? Are we afraid to tell people what team we're on? Are we afraid of making Thanksgiving uncomfortable or Easter uncomfortable because we know that if people in our family find out what side we're on, they're not going to like us? Guys, that's their script. That is their script. I'm in a unique chair because I get hundreds of direct messages every day on social media and all this stuff. And I get to see, it's really neat. I get to see their script. I get to see what it is. So when this whole separation thing first started, the first thing they said is, oh, these guys are idiots. It's not going to go anywhere. Oh, yeah, right. It's a pipe dream. Don't even worry about them. Well, then they started to see the lineups, and they went, oh, geez, we might have to worry about these people. And then they started to panic. Well, then it's, you couldn't separate if you wanted to. Alberta could never make it on your own. You're landlocked. You're this. I just heard a story of, someone told me earlier that when what was the one to stay in Canada? What was that thing called that Thomas Lukaszuk did? Forever Canada. I just learned that the canvassers, even though they weren't registered, they were going to all the old folks' home in Camrose and telling the old folks that if they didn't sign this, they were going to lose their pension. Yeah. And there's no consequence, right? So, you guys, we need to be so fortified and so united and so educated in order to win this thing. It's crazy. And so your job, this is your job. I'm tasking every one of you with this job. You got to educate yourself up the wazoo on all of this stuff. And we're going to help you with this. Chris is working on stuff. My girlfriend Ange and I were working on a website to help you answer all these questions. What we actually want to do is build something so that when you're sitting down with your friends and family and you say, you know what, I need to tell you something. I think I'm leaning towards separating. Are you? Yeah. Can I show you why? And then pull up information. Find out what their biggest concerns are. And the way we want to do the website is to answer that CPP question or any other question. Go to the website, type in, is my CPP safe? And 4 videos will come up that'll explain exactly just how safe they are. And so we want to arm all of you with the ability to have these conversations from an enlightened and educated perspective with the people who wonder. Because I promise you guys, everybody in this room has a number of people that look up to you and respect you. And you can use that. You can use that to win this thing. Because the beauty of this one, you guys, the beauty of this election or this referendum is it's the first one we've ever had that's ours. This is ours. And I don't know about you, but every time there's a federal election and they call it before it hits Saskatchewan's border, I just want to throw a chair through a window. When's the last time we had a vote that counted in this province? It's now. And so I'm telling you guys, it is going to get ugly. It's going to get mean. They're going to do everything they can to stop us. And that's why I'm telling you, you have to be willing to get uncomfortable. The same way, if we were uncomfortable and more vocal during COVID, maybe it would have been a bit of a different result. Maybe the lockdowns wouldn't have worked. Maybe all those things. Maybe we could have ended it before the trucker rally did. And that's why I have so much, where's Chris? I have so much respect for Chris because he was one of the loud ones. He was one of the ones that made us feel like we're not alone. But guys, we can't just rely on a few Chris's in this one. All of us have to do it. All of us. And if we do that, we can win. Because you know what we have? We have the passion to do this. And we've got the commitment, but you got to get uncomfortable. And I'm going to tell you right now the reason we're going to win this thing. The reason we are going to win is simple. It's going to be voter turnout. Because every single person who wants out of this province is going to vote. Our voter turnout is going to be 100%. We don't need 51% of the province to vote for this. We need 51% of the votes. And when the voter turnout is 100% on our side, that's what's going to do it. Because their side is not going to have 100%. So can I count on you guys to get brave? Because that's what it's going to take. Okay, now just a sec. I gotta take a photo of everybody here. I'm going to get in it. Just a sec. This is a verbal contract you just made with me, by the way. Everybody said they're going to get brave, so hang on. Okay, everybody say cheese. There we go. Thanks. And you guys, it's going to be very entertaining. I promise you, when you get loud, the questions you're going to get asked, the things they're going to say, they are hilarious. Some of them, like, there's really good questions, and some of them are absolutely hilarious. Like, did you guys know that tonight's event was paid for by Donald Trump? Did you know that? I was told that by numerous people, and I said, geez, I didn't know that. I said, you know what, though? I think you're right. I think Donald Trump insists on pierogies and sausage at every meal that he does. So, yeah, so thanks, Don, for the pierogies and sausage. That was good of you. Guys, that's it for me. If you don't, I didn't really talk about my Instagram and social media stuff, but Sarah Me a Great Man, I never wanted to talk about politics. That was never my intention. I wanted to help men get strong in every way. And I realized a long time ago that the quickest way to neuter a society or to take over a society is you neuter the men, you disconnect them from God. You can take over anything. So I was trying to do my part to help with that. I never want to talk about this stuff, and I can't wait to not talk about it again. Wouldn't it be great if we didn't care about politics again? Like, wouldn't that be awesome? That's the goal. So hopefully we win this thing. We can get back to talking about the weather. So thanks, you guys. So is it you or Chris? It's you. Okay. So Shane, been rolling with organizing all these things. Unsung hero. Thank you for all you're doing, man. This is awesome. And thank you for coming out. Be brave, okay?
Thank you. I'm actually going to keep it really, really short before Chris comes up and speaks. I normally have about a 25-minute speech, but the only thing I wanted to talk about, because I talk about the history and the relationship with Ottawa most of the time. And one of the main things that I talk about is how it came that Alberta was formed. In the 1880s to about 1905, there was a huge American settler movement that moved up here into Alberta, and they were very much pushing for exactly what we're wanting to do, but it being a territory, it would have been a lot easier for the United States to absorb them. Now, we're not wanting to be an American state, but they were very much focused on that was their goal. And the reason that I wanted to have that part as what I talked about is the town that we sit in was one of the centers in that. And most of the people from Rimbey itself know that the original name for Rimbey was Kansas Ridge. And that was because of the settler movement. If you go up the road here, by where I live, you have USONA, which a lot of people don't realize that stands for, USONA stands for the United States of North America. The original name for the city of Airdrie was Yankee Valley. So one of the main reasons why the Saskatchewan and Alberta were formed was because they did not want the U.S. absorbing the territories. And so in 1905, they brought out the Canada Act, which formed Alberta and Saskatchewan. And I'll go a little bit farther and say that I would recommend that everybody go to the Government of Alberta website and download a copy of the Alberta Act. Because once you read that, it will make you that much more steadfast in wanting to support independence. So, like I said, I'm cutting it really short so that Chris will be up next, and I will turn it over to Chris now.
Well, I'm going to keep it really short, too. I'm going to condense my normal talking points into an hour and 45 minutes. Hi, Mom. Okay. We've all heard people talking about the inequities between the East and the West in Confederation, right? We've felt that for years. We've felt it in our taxes. We felt it when we turn on the TV for whatever reason, and we find out that our federal government has been elected and our votes haven't even been counted. We feel it when the CFIA comes in and they say, I think I saw your chicken sneeze, now you have to kill them all. We feel it when all of a sudden our work is just gone because we can't move our resource to Tidewater, to export it. We feel it when we hear our Prime Minister tell the world that there's no business case for Alberta energy and therefore we don't need to build infrastructure. We feel all those things. And the feeling that it causes is probably anger, a little bit of frustration. Some people it's despair, some people it's just sadness, but we get angry about that. And on social media lately, I've been seeing the people that are opposed to a sovereign Alberta saying, oh, you're just bitching about this, you're just whining, you're just crying about this. Shut up and pay your federal taxes, one Toronto podcaster says. And it occurred to me that for 120 years, this province has been working towards something that is new across all of Canada, something that's never happened before. All of these things that have caused Albertans to be upset or sad or in despair, all those negative things have created the greatest opportunity that this country and this province have ever had. We have the opportunity to do something that other people die for. We have the opportunity to create something that in other parts of the world took hundreds of years and hundreds of thousands of lives. We have the opportunity to come together as Albertans and say, we don't consent any longer to being governed in a way in which we can't influence the governorship, as in the government, and that doesn't benefit us. We have an opportunity to just say no to federal overreach into provincial sovereignty. And it just so happens that we're probably the only province, Saskatchewan maybe, who could do this at this time. Why? Because of all the tribulations we've gone through leading up to now. Because of all the times that we've come to the realization that it doesn't matter who we vote for in Alberta on a federal level. It doesn't matter how hard we campaign for the apple-eating guy that's cool. It doesn't matter. Our voices aren't heard. So we can't influence our representation to the point where it changes our future. And therefore, all we can do is be the nagging, whining, embarrassing cousin of Confederation that the other provinces really don't like anyway. Except, in this country, there is a legal path to sovereignty. There is. We have an opportunity to just simply use our voices and depend on a paper and change the outcome for ourselves and our kids and our grandkids. Do you know what that is? Do you know what our opportunity is? It's never been done in Canada by the people. We have the opportunity to contribute to the Constitution of Alberta. Do you know what that means? When the British North America Act was penned, it wasn't a group of people like you, hard-working contributors to Confederation, who got together in a room like this and decided, this is how we're going to be governed. This is how we're going to allow the government to limit our freedoms from time to time. These are the rules that we consent to living under. We didn't do that. Some very powerful, elitist people from Eastern Canada went to London, and you can look this up if you want, and they sat with representatives of the Crown and they wrote a constitution that was passed in British Parliament that forever subjugated every Canadian. Did you know that? It wasn't the people. And now in Alberta, we have an opportunity to tell them no. We've grown up. We can stand on our own 2 feet. And now we're going to choose how we're governed. We are going to choose how the government may interact with us. I get asked all the time, Chris, well, what if everything just stays the same? What if we go to all this trouble and we become sovereign and then it's the same corruption and the same bad laws and infringements on our rights and these things? And my answer to every one of those questions is our Constitution. We have an opportunity to draft a document and create a nation that aligns with our values. And that's never been done before. All of those things that I mentioned about the inequity between the East and the West, the tribulations Alberta and the rest of the Western provinces have gone through, the reason for that is because right from the very beginning, we were intended to be a resource colony without a loud enough voice in Confederation to affect the government. That's what it was. Clifford Sifton told us flat out in 1904, we and all Canadian patriots desire that the great trade of the prairies go to enrich our lives, build up our factories and places of work in the East, and in every way can contribute to its prosperity. He actually told the West what our place in Confederation was. And that's why to this day, you and you and you have that feeling that it doesn't matter what you do, it's going to be the same old thing, it's going to be liberal governments for the rest of your lives, and we're never going to fix the inequities that keep us down. But we turn that into an opportunity. Out of all that negative stuff, we turn that into a positive. What can we do? What are we going to do with these lemons? Well, we're going to make some ink and write a constitution with them. And when we do that, we finally have a nation where you matter. Your values matter. The sanctity of life matters. And we have the opportunity to make sure that our grandkids don't have to experience the things that we are today. I am a Canadian citizen. I was jailed for protesting on my own property. I am a Canadian citizen, and I attended illegal, well, they turned out not to be illegal. Check out my lawsuit for that one. I attended illegal church services, hiding from my government for fear of retaliation. I'm a Canadian citizen, and I witnessed my fellow Canadians saying goodbye to their mother as they passed on an iPad. I'm a Canadian citizen, and I have met in rooms just like this in a clandestine fashion, under cover of darkness, for political purpose, hiding from my government, because if I would have been found, I would have been jailed. Uh-oh, were they watching that? But my point is, we have this idea, I had this idea when I was young, that Canada was this free country, and you have these rights, you have these documents that protect you. You have the Charter of Rights and Freedoms that protects you. You have the Bill of Rights that protects you, and the Constitution protects you. I went to elementary school in the early 80s. I'm 47, so I guess I was probably 6, or how old was I? So started school at 6 years old, I guess. That would have been 1985. The Constitution had been repatriated 3 years ago, and the excitement was tangible. You could feel it as your teachers talked about what Pierre Elliott Trudeau and how he gave us these rights and how great it was. So we're going to be free forever. Well, fast forward 40 years, and I'm laying in jail for protesting, scratching my head, wondering, how could I be in jail for protesting government? That's all we have in this country, to try and oppose what the government's doing. And you have a right to oppose your government, by the way. How could this happen? Mr. Ruda in grade 4 told me that I had these rights and they were protected. But what he failed to mention was that those rights came with a string, with a caveat, and that was, if the government says you don't have those rights, you don't have them anymore. And if you disagree and you protest, even if you bring a couple thousand people to your property, do you know what they will do? They will get enough cops and enough buses to arrest 2,000 people and you, and they will put you in jail, and they'll take your rights away anyway. And then, if you're like me, you'll spend the next 10 years in court trying to prove that what the government did was wrong. Now, all that turned out to be fun for me because I'm part Irish and I'm part Russian, so I love the fight. But when you think about what we've witnessed in the last 5-6 years in this country, and you think about what the country was supposed to be, you realize that not only is it a completely different world than we thought, but we also have an opportunity to change that. So I'm not going to tell you which way to vote, who to vote for, what party. I'm not even going to tell you whether to choose yes or no. But I'm going to ask you to start thinking about what the next few years are going to bring. If we do nothing and we allow the status quo to continue, I would say the trajectory is probably mostly down. I've written a few articles on this. I say frequently that we're in a state of managed decline in which our politicians are smiling, telling us everything is okay, but we go to the grocery store and we feel that everything is not. We can continue down that path, or we can do something that's never been done before in this country. Never. We can focus on a goal, and the goal is a free and prosperous Alberta. I think I know which path you folks want to take. We focus on that goal, we have conversations, we have discussions. We bring people with us on our journey. We have discussions, we have the conversations. And I can't have those conversations for you. I can stand up here or on a live stream on my podcast, and I could speak to 5, 10, 50,000 people. And they'll listen to what I'm saying, and maybe it'll change what they're thinking, maybe it won't. I don't know a lot of those people. You do. So in your day-to-day interactions, when you leave here, when you meet with people tomorrow, you can bring these things up. You can say, hey, did you know that Canadians actually didn't decide how they were going to be governed like they should have done? Did you know that British Parliament actually told us how we were going to be governed? That's a pretty interesting point. And furthermore, did you know that we actually have an opportunity to right that wrong and stand on our own 2 feet and build it ourselves? And if you talk to somebody who you already have a relationship with, who already trusts you, those words mean something coming from you. It's not coming from a talking head on a stage in Rimbey, Alberta. It's coming from someone they know and trust. So Adam was right when he said, we have to get a little uncomfortable. We really do. We have to be willing to have Uncle Tom, no, let's use Uncle Ted, get upset with us because we bring this up. I have customers at my cafe, and sometimes we talk about this subject in passing, and some of them get right upset with me, like actually red in the face. And I have to make a decision. Am I going to do what I would have done 6 years ago and stop the conversation to try and save the coffee sale? Or am I going to be willing to sacrifice a little bit of my social standing or my coffee money that I might have got from that customer to tell them what I really think? It's time we start talking about what we really want and what we really think, and do so boldly. Bolder even than the people who don't agree with us do. When we do that, I'm not saying if, I'm saying when, because you guys all cheered when I talked about a free and prosperous Alberta. When we do that, we will achieve our goal. I've been watching what Alberta is doing. I've been from one corner of the province to the other. I've seen the lineups. I've felt the change in the room, as you know, going from a kind of taboo subject to this is mainstream. We're talking about this openly now. I've felt the change. I see it in people. I see people who never would have come to a political event showing up because they care. And because of that, I can tell you, Alberta independence, it's not only necessary, but it is inevitable. I just want to make sure it happens in our lifetime so that our children can benefit. Now, how do we do that? Well, I can tell you what I'm going to do, and some of the volunteers who helped put this event on, who, by the way, just showed up and asked to help. What we're going to do is over the next period of time, up until around the beginning, first week of October, I want to do 200 events like this. 200. And of course, I'm not going to be at all of them because that'll kill me. There is a growing group of people who are willing to speak and share their thoughts about this and discuss and connect with Albertans. They're going to be going to things like this and having discussions and conversations. They're going to be going and trying to change the hearts and change the minds of those people who are entrenched in the status quo. 200 events in 186 days. That's what it looks like. And that's what we're going to do. And by the way, I'm not doing this as a part of any group. I'm doing this as Christopher Scott from the Whistle Stop Cafe, a waitress and cook. That's it. I'm not special. I am an ordinary, average, everyday Albertan. I am. Why are you laughing at me? I am. And I decided a long time ago that I am no longer going to allow myself to be a victim of a system that makes me think I have no voice. I am going to take my... Thank you. I'm going to be responsible for my future, and I'm going to take control of the things that I can control. And what I can do is I can travel this province, and I can feed people pierogies, and I can have these conversations. And I am not going to stop doing this until we're successful. Because in my opinion, there is nothing that we can do as Albertans that will be more important than the work we're going to do from now until we get that question. Are you with me? And for all of you in internet land, share this. Talk to your friends. Tell them you need to start having these conversations. Don't tell them. Ask them to have the conversation. Because the question is going to be asked. And if we're going to answer the question, we better know, we better be educated and be able to make the right choice. I was going to tell you what my choice is going to be, but I'll let you figure it out on your own. Anyway, thank you for listening. I didn't mean to take so much of your time because we started so late. I do want to remind you this is the first time we've done something like this, so the timing was a little bit off. But what we're going to do now is we're going to just take your questions. And maybe we'll spend, I don't know, Shane, let's spend half hour. We'll do a Q&A. And then after that, we're just going to come and mingle and visit. But please, if you have questions, and specifically, if you have objections, why you believe we should not pursue independence for Alberta, I want to hear those objections, and don't be shy. The only way we can make the right choices is if everybody's included in the discussion. So be bold, even with your objections. Questions? And I believe if you have questions, and I'll ask Michael and Adam,
there we go.
To come up.
If I can get you to line up here with your questions, and I'll keep my hand on the mic.
So today, I think, thank you for coming and doing this, because more people need to speak up, because you're either part of the problem, part of the solution, I think, today, and it's being perfectly clear. So I just have a few, because there's a lot of disinformation campaigns surrounding this out there, because they're attacking it just like they do with everything else. If we do this, and when it happens, let's just say there is separation, what does that look like for the dollar? Are you looking at doing something where it's going to be the US because we're going to deal with oil and gas, or is it going to be Canadian dollars still? That was my first one. Do you have the answers? And it's okay if you don't, but I just, from the horse's mouth, instead of the disinformation campaigns that are out there.
Okay, so is this one working? No, it's working. Is it working? Oh, okay, so the question is about currency. Now, full disclosure, I am terrible at finances. Don't take my financial advice, but this is my opinion. based on what other people, what I've learned from other people and from reading, by the way. As Alberta, there we go. As Alberta approaches sovereignty, independence, things are going to be not smooth for a while. The Canadian dollar, in my opinion, my very humble opinion, ask your financial planner for his advice, the Canadian dollar, in my opinion, would probably not do too well. Alberta is roughly 15% of Canada's GDP, but Alberta's GDP is almost 90% new value creation. That means we're producing things, we're extracting resources, we're providing We're providing value to the market, things that can be traded internationally and bring money into the province. That's a big deal. People often say, oh, well, Alberta, only 15%, that doesn't matter. Ontario is 38%. Well, Ontario, their GDP is 88% finance, real estate, and leasing. That means that the things that are creating economic activity in Ontario, they're not new value. You have to be earning value to do those things. And furthermore, there's a bureaucracy and government that's a parasitic draw on what we create, with the value we create. So the Canadian dollar, I believe, is probably going to take a hit, and you should plan accordingly. An independent Alberta, I believe, should be sovereign in all areas, including currency. However, reality, that ugly reality, tells me that when we become independent, we need to do something and have a currency we can use, because I don't want to be using the Canadian dollar. And I'll remind you, this is your choice, by the way. These are all your choices. What currency we use, how it's done, it's all going to be you folks who get involved and elect politicians that advocate for certain things. So we're going to choose these things. But I say we should use the US dollar. There's 27 other countries that use the US dollar as either a secondary or a reserve currency. It's easy to do. It's internationally accepted. We can trade with any country with US dollar. But at the same time, if you want to be sovereign, you have to have your own currency. But that takes time. It'll take time to build an Alberta currency. We have to build a reserve that is equal to or exceeds our gross domestic product. Otherwise, our dollar could be speculatively demolished, like what happened in the Asian financial crisis. So we have to build our Alberta dollar. But in my opinion, US dollar first, moving towards sovereignty over a period of 5-6 years with an Alberta dollar, backed with a hard asset, by the way.
Yeah, which I love the hard aspect part, right? Like if anybody knows when they went away from the gold standard and all that, you know. One thing I would like to clarify about your question. So nobody up here, in fact, nobody you talk to has these answers yet. Sure. Right?
It starts with the conversation.
For sure. It starts with the conversation. But like at the stage in this that we're at right now, you guys, it's very simple. We're just trying to get signatures so we can get a referendum. Like we don't even have a referendum yet. Right? And there will be lots of hurdles before we get there. Once the referendum is set, then some of these conversations, there can be some groups that are going to be vying for leadership and, you know, all those things. But for now, it's just about getting the signatures. So it's a great question. I agree with pretty much everything Chris said there on the currency for sure. I think that makes logical sense, but we're not the ones making that decision.
No, I get you.
Yeah.
And it's just that in the groups that I have the conversations with, these are not, oh, Becky, my nails. These are hardcore conversations. These are people that are change makers. These are people that are go out there. They are what they want to see. And so they ask these questions. So again, from the horse's mouth, because if you are trying to say, hey, join my team, but you're a weak team, nobody wants to be led by a weak leader.
100%.
So if you're somebody who has the foresight to say, hey, listen, this is 20 steps ahead, we're still looking at it, we don't have the answers, but it is in the work, that's a little different, right?
Totally. Yeah. Go ahead.
And then my next question was in regards to when it comes to the laws, so then would we be independent of the Supreme Court of Canada and all of the rulings that they have done and have our own independence when it comes to the laws? How would that work?
I'll answer that quickly. Yes, absolutely, 100%. But I do want to, there's a little disclaimer here. I just want everyone to know that these events are not to advocate for anything to do with any current petitions or anything like that. That's a completely different thing. What I want to do and what we want to do here is have discussions that Albertans are talking about right now. And as we have those discussions, then you get to make the choices on which way you want to do things, right? So, and part of this is because Elections Alberta, there are rules. And we don't want to muddy the waters with what we're doing. So what we're doing is specifically discussions about what an independent Alberta could look like and that sort of thing. Anything related to a current petition is a completely different topic that's not our wheelhouse.
I guess I have two questions. The first one is based on the gentleman to my far right. You talked about having uncomfortable conversations, and I was just hoping you could maybe give us all a goal as to how many we would have to convince to do the vote, and that's based on what you all have as experience, and you've seen all the people, and you have a much better idea as to how large this group is. But I'd like to know, how many people do I and everybody else in this room, how many do we need to essentially come to our side?
So first off, I'm already not welcome at Christmas. Don't call me far right. Don't call me that. I'm just teasing you. I'm sitting on the far right. So, I mean, the answer, it's like, how high is up, right? Like, how many can you, right? Everybody in this room has different reach. I think about, okay, I'm going to give you an analogy. Are there any Edmonton Oilers fans here? Like, yeah, there's a few? Okay. So, does anybody know the story about when the Oilers lost the cup before they won? Does anybody know that story? Okay, so it's a great story. So they lost to the New York Islanders, and they thought that when they walked past the Islanders dressing room that they were going to be partying and dancing and doing everything, you know, just celebrating. And when they walked by, they looked, and the whole Islanders team was just, they didn't have any energy left to celebrate. They were just sitting there just like, you know, they were exhausted. They were spent. And that was the day the Oilers found out what it would take to win, because they had energy to party. They were still ready to go. And they realized that they didn't empty their tank. And that's what it was going to take to win. And that's what it'll take to win this. So my answer to you, sir, is empty your tank. Talk to as many people as you can and practice it. Like, think of it like a sales pitch. Go to the easy ones first and then work your way up to the hard ones. But I can tell just by looking at you that there's a whole bunch of people that respect you. Use that.
Another question I had. My understanding is we have to have a clear majority vote, but the whole clear majority is rather nebulous because it's not an exact number. And I understand that the governments may say, well, 51%, not good enough, 55%, not good enough. I'm just throwing a number out there too. And I understand there is a plan B. If this doesn't work, and I'm not entirely sure, but it has to do with us saying, okay, plan A is not working, we're going to plan B, which is to just declare our own independence. And my understanding is as long as another country or series of countries say, we recognize you as a sovereign state, that's good enough. And I'm kind of unclear, and I was just wondering if someone else could help clear up, what does plan B work, what does plan B look like in the event that the government says, oh, 51% not good enough, 55% not good enough, and just basically crushes the whole process.
So, like, I don't represent an organization, so I can't like give like an official kind of answer to that. But like, there's a couple of aspects to that. Like, one is the idea of the clear majority. You know, the idea behind the idea of a clear majority is like in regular politics, 50% plus one is good enough. Like the tax rate, 50% plus one, or where do you put the bridge, right? 50% plus one. But when you're starting a new country, you need more than 50% plus one, because someone will change their mind the next day and you don't have a new country. Like you need what's called generally like a clear majority, like a bigger than 50% plus one to form a new country, because you need very significant buy-in from the population. Like the people of the province have to support independence to really start a new nation. Like 50% plus one isn't enough to start a new nation. So there is a rationale behind the idea of a clear majority, like something that's more than just 51% or something like that. Because we really need to have massive support to start a new country. Now, in the Supreme Court decision, like the Supreme Court made the pathway for a province to become independent in a reference case from 1998 called the Secession Reference Case, which was dealing with Quebec. And the question was, can Quebec declare independence unilaterally? And the court said, no, it can't declare independence unilaterally, but it could become independent, if it held a referendum with a clear question and a clear majority. And the court went on to say that if a province gets a clear majority on a clear question and the federal government kind of puts obstacles in the way so that it's not getting its independence, that in that case, international recognition would play a part. So we've got these rules for a province to become independent. If the federal government's not following Canada's own rules, other democratic countries are going to see that and say, wait a minute, Canada's not following its own rules. And if Alberta is following the rules and Canada is not, those countries will sympathize with Alberta. And if Alberta was to get international recognition, then that would kind of guarantee our independence, because it would kind of overrule, in a sense, what Ottawa is trying to do. Now, this would make the most impact if it was the United States. So if the United States recognizes Alberta's independence after a proper referendum, there's really not much that Canada could do, because Canada is much weaker than the United States. So international recognition would be a key thing. If the federal government is not following the rules, the international recognition could get us over the line, and especially if it's the United States. And right now there's indications that the current administration would be willing to recognize Alberta independence. Now, in a few years from now, we might have a different administration that's not at all supportive of that. So we're kind of have a window of opportunity in the next couple of years that, as long as we're following the rules, we have every reason to expect that other countries will respect what we're doing and support what we're doing, as long as we follow the rules according to the Constitution. And if the federal government says, no, we're not going to follow the rules, then those countries are more likely to recognize us, and we would get our independence.
And I'll just add to that, one country that is quick to recognize independence, I think my mic's a little bit too loud there, Max. One country that's always quick to recognize independence as achieved through democratic process is Canada. Exactly. But the reality is, the Clarity Act and pursuing it through our legal pathway as afforded by the Supreme Court decision, that is a preference. That is a preference that Canada would prefer that. But the reality is there's only two things needed for independence, and that is the will of the people and international recognition. That's it. So we need to make sure the will of the people is very loud. And I'm going to ask a favor. Folks, when you're asking a question, we really need you to just get right to the point of the question. We're going to try and get through these as quick as we can so everyone can get their questions in.
Oh, thanks. This question is for the view of, let's just say now we're at the point that everything is yes and we become an independent country. How do we have it so we don't have a de facto government in place? Because as you have right now, our premier, we have our different MP, all these people. How do we make it so that we're going to come from, this government that's already there, so that it's being guided by the people? Is there going to be, I don't know if this is discussion that people have had already, is it a group of people? So a lot of people have been asking, what happens after yes? How do we make sure it's us, not the government putting
One word. One word. Constitution. Constitution.
Who builds that?
We build it.
Who's we?
The people of Alberta.
How do you get 1 million voices to put all their stuff forward for a constitution?
You support people who are advocating for constitutional things that you agree with, right? There's going to be people that attend constitutional conventions. That's what's going to happen. Referendum, independence, constitutional convention, that lays the groundwork for everything. You want to talk about how we make sure we don't have a de facto government or a government that can steamroll our rights and freedoms? You have a constitution that first and foremost upholds the right to free speech. That is so important. You also have a constitution, now this is a tough part to swallow, but it's true, that gives the people the right to defend themselves. The United States is, it's not actually a democracy, it's a republic. The United States has maintained their freedom for 250 years, it's 250th anniversary this year, by the way, because they have free speech, the right to bear arms, and the right to form a well-regulated militia to protect against government tyranny.
Is
That's
that
how
going
you
to be
do
done in the first year? Like in the first year, or is it, some people think it's going to take a while to get a constitution together?
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
So one of the things we have to understand is that, let's say there's 70% that vote for independence, right? And you got the clear majority, and that's clear. there's still going to be this working out period, this period where we've still got to negotiate our way out of Canada, right? So all the referendum does is it triggers a good faith negotiation with the rest of Canada. That's not going to happen instantly. There's going to be some time. And during that time, all the things that you're talking about, that's when we're going to work them all out. Because there's going to be this sort of period of limbo before it's all done. It doesn't happen instantly. Yeah, great question.
But if you want to, sorry, one more thing. If you want to expedite that process, you make sure that the will of the people is large will, right? The higher the percentage of Albertans that want this, the shorter the negotiation period is. Go ahead, young man.
How much money would Alberta save in its own country?
Great question.
Like, I can't answer with an exact figure, but we know that since 1965, every year, Alberta has over-contributed to Canada by several $billion because we get taxed, and then some of the tax money comes back, but a large percentage of it does not come back. So all I know is that when we're independent, we will not be sending those billions of dollars a year to Eastern Canada, and that money will stay here. And it would actually vary from year to year depending on some years it's 10 billion, some it might be 15 billion. So it depends on different economic factors, but it would be several $billion a year most likely, every year. Is that a good question or a good answer?
So that was billion with a B, and in the last, I don't know, I think 15, 20 years, it's something like $20 billion a year average. But $1 billion, for those of you that don't know, is 1,000 piles of $1 million. That is a lot of money. That buys a lot of candy and toys.
I just retired in the middle of January, and I've had many questions. I've been canvassing for almost a month already, and my question is, where does the CPP Canada Pension Plan, and where does the OAS come? Because I'm from that is my first time. And another thing too, I have another short question. I've already had questions of people asking me, where do we get our defense, and where's the border, between provinces, what happens?
I need to remind everyone right off the bat, if anybody is participating in that type of thing, where you're working on an Elections Alberta approved thing like that, you can't have those conversations. You're there for one thing and one thing only. Conversations happen at places like this. But I'll answer the question about the CPP and OAS. Though Alberta should have their own pension plan already. The Alberta First Pension Group, they traveled around the province, they showed the math, it's very obvious that Alberta should have had a pension plan before. That was one of the things in the firewall letter that Stephen Harper helped create to insulate Alberta against the federal government, was have their own pension plan. So we should already have it, but it becomes a negotiation thing. Same with old age security. Old age security is a federal entitlement, so that would be something that Alberta would have to take up. And personally, and again, I'm just a waitress, but I will advocate and I will fight very hard in whatever capacity I can to make sure that no Albertan gets left behind with any of this stuff. That means if right now you get an entitle from the federal government and negotiations, or exit negotiations don't take care of that, Alberta has to pick up that tab. That is so paramount. There's a lot of people that literally think that this is going to happen and they're going to lose their pension, they're going to lose their everything, and they're going to starve to death. No, not on my watch, and not according to anybody else that I associate with in this movement. All has to be taken up by Alberta.
The other thing too, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but so, sir, if you decided to move to Brazil and retire, you still get your Canadian pension, right? Like, you paid into it. It's yours. So, like, yeah, there is the negotiation around all of it, but like, it is your pension.
Just like you asked about borders as well. The borders would be the same as they are now. Like the provinces have constitutional status. Like, we have two levels of government in the Constitution, federal and provincial. And the provinces, like, I'm not sure if it's in the Alberta Act or where, but Alberta's current boundaries are guaranteed. And so Alberta would leave as a province or stay as a province. There wouldn't be any changing on the borders.
I wanted to get you guys' opinion on what would happen with national infrastructure. So air bases, airports, things like that.
I always answer this one really quick. Again, it's a negotiation thing, but I just want to remind everybody that over the past number of years, when adjusted for inflation, Alberta has contributed almost $1.5 trillion to Confederation. So when our negotiating team is there, that's going to be something that we start with. So when we talk about our national bases, our national parks, those types of things, well, we've already paid for it, right? So that's where I would start with negotiation, but it is a negotiation. And there's one more thing. There's a misconception that I've seen on social media where people say, oh, well, Alberta, if you don't want to be under the Constitution, well, then you no longer have those constitutional borders, and you no longer have your constitutional right to your resources and things, and it goes back to Ottawa. Wrong. That's not how it works. On the international stage, when a country or when a region secedes from their parent nation, all of the assets, land, and resources go with it. If it didn't, there would never have been a new country created in the history of the planet. So that's important to remember.
And just to add to that, like the secession reference case is the Supreme Court's opinion on constitutional law. So when the Supreme Court gave the provinces the right to secede from Canada, like all those things go along. They couldn't have given a province the right to secede from Canada and then say, well, you disappear if you try to secede. That'd be a contradiction in their ruling. They did give provinces the right to secede. So under Canada's constitutional law, a province can secede, and they don't lose the kind of things that people have mentioned that Chris talked about.
Hi. My main question is, as a university student and part of the youth of this kind of movement, I face a lot of, I guess the best word I have is discrimination, because if I bring up I'm a conservative, automatic backlash. What can I do to just kind of fight back? Because it's not good in the universities.
Be willing to be uncomfortable. It's not an easy thing to say. Have you ever heard the name Charlie Kirk?
Yep.
Did you see what Charlie Kirk did?
Yep.
He went around to universities where he knew people were going to discriminate against him for what he believed in. He did it anyway, and he had these conversations. So if I was a university student right now and I was brave enough, and I hope I would be starting a conservative group in my university, and I would be loud about it. And you know, when the other side attacks you for doing stuff like that, what's going to happen is the people around you are going to watch that. They're going to watch you standing up for what you believe in, respectfully, politely, doing what you believe is right. And they're going to watch the other side being complete, what's the word? Dinks. And it's the right word, I think.
That's the word.
And it's going to bring more people to your cause. And I think that's something we need in this province is young people who are willing to do things like that and build their tribe within that institution.
Yeah, and the other thing I would add to that, you got to know your stuff. Yeah. Right? Like that's what made Charlie so effective is he really knew his stuff. Like he would just say, I'll debate you on anything. Right? Now, don't expect you to get there, but when you're going to have an argument or a conversation with someone, know your stuff. And then when you do it, be as calm as can be, right? They're going to yell and scream. The calmer you get, the more you're going to win. Know your stuff, be calm, be brave. That's the key.
Second question. I love how it blank out. Oh, sorry. What could I do to argue back, or how could I appeal to these sometimes insufferable people, for lack of a better term?
Well, you speak their language.
Yep.
I don't. I have 3 kids. I'm not even sure we both speak English. You know their language. You know the talking points, right? So just think about it. You know what's a really good technique? It's called pre-rehearsal. It's when you rehearse conversations in your head. You know what they're going to say. Rehearse it over and over and over and over. Get good at it. Practice it. Know that you're going to lose a few, but then think about, how would I have done that one differently, right? You speak their language. You have an ability, frankly, that the 3 of us don't. You can do it. And frankly, it's going to take a lot of people like you to do it. And then what I talked about earlier about building a herd, the herd will grow, right? And like the Conservative Club, I think that's a wonderful idea. There are, and the other part is, how many other people are just doing it in silence? How many people are just walking around your university with teeth marks in their tongue because they're biting their tongue all day? There's probably a lot more than you think.
I'm going to add to that. I would say that you need to, like you were saying a few minutes ago, you need to know what you're talking about, though. You need to research everything very well so that when they come up with an argument, you have it right on the back of your tongue exactly how you're going to respond to that.
One last thought. Is debate club still a thing? Like, do kids still like, do they like debate club? No? That's gone? Okay. Well, that's too bad. That would have been a great place to practice too. Yeah. No kidding.
Hi, I'm homeschooled, and what can I do to support the Alberta independence?
Well, social media is fantastic for that. You know, watch stuff, read stuff, learn things, share things. You're homeschooled, but do you have homeschool clubs like you do stuff with other homeschool kids, stuff like that?
I'm one of the oldest.
Okay. Well, just wherever you go, and don't even, it doesn't even have to be just kids you're in school with or kids who you would be in school with who are your same age. Talk to adults, right? When a kid really knows what they're talking about and they talk to an adult and the adult and they win and the kid wins the argument, it changes something in that adult, and they start to. It's a very effective thing. So if you get knowledgeable in these things and you have the conversations everywhere you go, it'll make a big difference.
I'll tell you another thing you could do, and this would be a lot of fun. Do you have grandparents? Okay. Do your grandparents have friends? Okay. Somebody write this down. Figure out the math on what it cost your grandparents to buy their first house in terms of their percentage of their income, their ability to do it, how affordable it was, and then show them the math today. Show them the math today and then say, Grandma and Grandpa, how am I going to buy a house? How am I going to get ahead? You had this wonderful life because the country looked like this then. Show me. If you were me, what would you do? What opportunities do I have? Get them to vote for you.
So after separation happens, what do you guys think will happen to the justice system? Do you plan on keeping it similar to how it is now, or how will we have like jails, prisons, youth justice acts, stuff like that?
Well, I would like a justice system that believes in justice, for starters. I would like a legal and a justice system that we have a say in who is ruling. You know, I would like to see that we can influence who our judges are. I would like to see a nation where the government wasn't allowed to spend more than, like, I don't know, maybe double what you could afford to spend to defend yourself. It cost not me, but you folks who supported me, $340,000 to defend myself against the charges that AHS put on me. There's no way I could have done that. So I would like to see a just system, one where we have just as much ability and power to defend ourselves as the government has to prosecute us.
Okay, you say that we have a new democratically voted constitution, but how can you affirm that the values that we are fighting for in independent Alberta campaign will be put in the new constitution when 50% of our province voted NDP?
There's only one way. You bring more people. That's it. This is a math question. If you bring more people to your cause in a democracy, you will win. And that means that you have a big job to do. You got to gather those people. There is no other way.
I have one more question. So earlier, like how she said, like you said that have talk with your grandparents, and I do that very often. They get mad at me, like you said. But what are ways that I could, because they usually just attempt to shut me down before I get to a point. So what are ways that I could like debate with them effectively?
So You got to ask for their respect, right? How old are you?
13.
Perfect. Ask them how they'd like to be treated when they're 13. Right? And again, like, you've got more years on this earth than your grandparents do. That's just simple math, right? So I think it's important that they respect the fact that you've got a long run here. And you've got to know this stuff. And so you could also position it where, you know what, Grandma, Grandpa, I want to have this conversation with you, but I also want to learn from you. I want to get your perspective too, right? Meet them halfway, but have those conversations and just keep doing it. They'll cave. They love you. They'll talk to you.
I was just wondering, like, we have military bases in here. How would it work, like with the RCMP and everything? How do we get the military, how would we get our own military and the military out, the Canadian military and the RCMP out?
Well, our servicemen and women are awesome. They really are. They signed up for... They didn't sign up for fame. They didn't sign up for fortune because we really don't pay them very well. They signed up because they want to serve. And the desire to serve doesn't change because the flag changes. I mean, it's the same people. They're serving the same people. So I would think that many of those would probably come over to, an Alberta force. The reality is, right off the bat, we're probably not going to have much. There is another option, and I always go to the U.S. because the U.S. is a really strong ally. We trade 90-some-odd% of our trade goes with the United States. We've always been good allies. There are 3 other nations, I can't remember who they are right now, that use the United States military as their primary defense contractor. We could do that. We could. But a sovereign nation needs their own military. So the way we do that is we start building. We have bases. We have things that are going to be negotiated in the exit, whatever. We've already bought them as far as I'm concerned. But we build a military that has the honor that our military used to have, built on those principles rather than what it's become. And I think that by doing that, we would attract probably some of the best, I was going to say brightest, it wasn't a Freudian slip, the best and brightest service people from all over the country because they want to serve somewhere where they're going to be respected and it's an honorable institution. And in the interest of sovereignty, we have to do that. We have to build that.
I've got a bunch of friends that are cops, both city cops and RCMP, and I've talked to people outside of the province that do that as well. Nobody is more frustrated with our justice system than the people who are law enforcement agents. They're so frustrated because their job doesn't even matter. Like, they go and arrest somebody and they're out the next day. They go and they're trying to make a difference. Like most good cops, that's what they want to do. So I predict that what would happen is there would be a lineup of the best cops and RCMP in this country begging to come here and work in a place where justice is actually served.
And the icing on the cake is the ones that like it the way it is right now because of the corruption. Guess where they're going to go?
That's right.
I got one question for you, Chris. What's going to happen to the British bloc?
In southern Alberta?
The British bloc?
Yeah.
That's owned by Britain, down by Medicine Hat?
Well, I don't know. I guess it'd be a
that's where they
train.
Brits and that.
Yeah. I worked on that block. I worked rigs down there. So I guess, Suffield, it's going to be, I imagine it'll be a negotiation thing. But the reality is they own that at the pleasure of Canada, right? It's so it'll be a negotiation thing.
You can see it'll stay in Canada or stay in Alberta. It's not going to be part of Canada. It'll be part of Alberta.
Well, that's up to us and how we negotiate. Yeah.
I have a question. So when we get 70% of in favor for the Alberta sovereignty, so there'd be approximately, a year and a half left before the next provincial election. And let's say NDP get in. Do they have to uphold the referendum, the results of the referendum?
If we have 70% of Albertans independence-minded, do you think we're going to have an NDP government? As an independence-minded Albertan, would you allow an NDP government to rule you again.
But
You know?
but you look at Edmonton and Calgary. There was
Yeah.
a big, huge NDP
Sure.
things. Things happen. It's a thing, like you do get a large portion, 70%, but that's not a guarantee that everybody's going to vote, because the provincial elections, now people are going to go, well, I don't want that now. I'm going to vote for NDP.
Okay.
But do they have to actually uphold the referendum? Because that was under the old government. And so now under the old government, does the new government have to uphold that?
Well, theoretically, yes.
Okay.
Theoretically, yes, but they're legislators. They could change the legislation.
Right.
But the reality is, and I said this before, there's only two things we need: the will of the people and international recognition.
Right.
So if we get to a point where there's roadblocks put up by government, and government's not supposed to put roadblocks to democracy. They're supposed to facilitate, right? So if we see that they're putting up roadblocks, there's a multitude of things we could do. We could do the same thing like we did a few years ago. We could fire Jason Kenney. Fire the government. We could build enough people to the cause that we could, the government becomes irrelevant. There's a number of things we could do. And these things aren't actually as contingent on government as people think. The will of the people is supreme to government. It's the will of the people that allows the government to be there in the first place. So if we show the will of the people wants something and the government doesn't do it, they simply cannot keep power. It doesn't work that way.
That is my worst nightmare, by the way. Well, your question is my worst nightmare, by the way. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, first of all, I'd like to congratulate and thank you fellows for doing what you're doing, and all the rest of the people that are helping promote independent Alberta. It's one of the most awesome things that I've seen in my years existing here. Someone asked me a question the other day about if they have a mortgage, say with the Toronto Dominion Bank, and Alberta separates, would there be any difference in what goes on with something like that? Would anybody have any ideas or comments on that one?
Yeah, so my day job, I work in the financial sector. I mostly just work with business owners on their wealth and tax planning, but I do have a little bit of background here, and I've talked to other people in this area. So that actually does get a little bit messy. And the transition, would be real. But what I think would end up happening is ATB would become very, very large in this province, like way bigger than it is. And I think you'd see lots of credit unions and things like that. And I think some of the banks, like some of the RBC and things like that, they would have things here, right? Like RBC's in the United States too, So, but getting through that and getting through all the regulations and all those things, it would be a little bit messy. But think about it this way, right? That bank, like let's say, you've got a house worth $500,000, you've got a $250,000 mortgage. The bank's going to want to find a way to get their $250,000, and they can't just sell it out from underneath you, right? There's a whole bunch of things that have to happen. So it would be a little bit messy, but it's not like people are going to lose their house. They're not, that's not what's going to happen. But yeah, you might need a new mortgage. That's possible.
Thank you.
Yep, great question.
Okay, this will be the last question.
Hi, and thank you guys for what you're going to do in the future for bringing more information to the public here. My question is, I'm thinking of voting for Carney now as a good Liberal. Basically on the reason that he's going to start selling my canola to China now. So I'm really strongly supporting him, and I'm just wondering what you think of that idea.
It's an interesting turn, hey? One of my favorite lines, sir, it's easy to have values until they're tested, right? And I don't know about you, but I thought it was pretty funny that, the very first thing that Carney said, it was either right before or right after he got elected. What's the biggest threat to this country's security? And he said, China. And then the first chance he gets, we're going to dance with this one. Again, it's just one more nail in the coffin for Alberta, right? And I really mean it when I say I really don't hate Canada. I really don't. I love Canada. I see Canada for what it was. It makes me sad that it's not that anymore. But every time they do this, it just makes it that much easier, right? If you're unappreciated at your job and somebody else is trying to hire you, right? And your boss just keeps, belittling you and undervaluing you and giving you no respect, just makes the grass that much greener on the other side. And I don't believe that it's going to be I'm not one of those people that thinks that separation is going to be easy and it's all going to be sunshine and rainbows the day after we have this vote. It's going to be really hard. Just like it's hard after you leave that job or after you get divorced and you got to go, rebuild your life. It's hard. It's going to be hard, you guys. It's like way harder than anybody thinks and anybody wants to admit. But when Carney says things like that, it just makes my resolve that much stronger to go, I'm willing to do those hard things to do this. I'm good with it. I'll make those trades. I'll make those sacrifices.
Like I was at the Golden Circle in Red Deer last night, Dr. Dwayne Brandt, and anyways, there were a number of farmers there last night, and they were very liberal and NDP. And this is why I presented this question, because I think you guys need to be able to deal with this, because these guys had no idea, and I wasn't bringing my information out very well. And they have no idea what happened to even cause this tariffs to happen on the canola. They forgot about the EVs and everything else. Probably it was even set up 4 or 5 years ago between we and Carney when he was still making $30 million a year as a Brookfield person. So you guys have to be ready to talk to them, because these farmers last night, they were right out of their friggin' mind. They're all Carney, so you guys need to know.
How many days we have? 250? Whatever it is till the...
Something like that.
Yeah, so we got time to talk to them.
Okay, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. Just so you know, we have an event on Monday night at the LMC in the county room where the... What's that? Oh, you knew that. And right across the street, the gentleman that Brad was talking about, Dwayne Bratt, has an event against independence. So I would encourage anybody that can come out Monday night to come out to Lacombe and let's show them which side we're on. And on Friday night, if anybody has anybody they know down in the Viking area, we will be in Viking. So, yep.
Just to show you that we have currently 555 people watching online. From all of the province, I got from people from Newfoundland watching, because they are doing the independent stuff over there too. They're pissed off as we are here.
Okay, thank you.
Good job, man. You're a great speaker.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
You ever seen the movie Roxanne? Steve Martin?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got it here.
One more thing. If you are at all able to help stack chairs and tables, that would be greatly appreciated. It makes the cleaning up go so much quicker. I'm being told to make sure that they're in stacks of 10.
Good job, everybody.